My name is Peder Ulander. I'm the Vice President of Product Marketing over at Citrix Systems, where I'm responsible for all of our cloud platforms, which means that I'm responsible for things like Citrix Cloud Platform, CloudStack, which is part of the Apache Foundation, our Zen Server virtualization, and ZenSource community, as well as our cloud portal technologies, which enable service providers and enterprises to effectively skin their cloud and deliver applications and services out to their users. So a lot of really cool things that we're doing at Citrix, specifically around the cloud. My background coming into Citrix and my connection with RightScale is I was the Chief Marketing Officer at Cloud.com. And we were one of the we still are, one of the leading partners with RightScale and have built a number of hybrid clouds out in the marketplace in the last couple of years. And so for the conference, I was asked to come in and talk a little bit about, what does it take, how do we engage, what are the right workloads, and how do we communicate to our customers what we're doing with regards to cloud computing technologies. So I noticed the track is all about hybrid. Hopefully you guys have seen some of the other solutions here throughout the conference. I don't think this will be radically different, but I'll just, we'll kind of kick through it. So with regards to Citrix, one thing so you guys understand where cloud fits into Citrix as a company, I think from a business perspective, we've been recognized for a fairly long time as being the leader in desktop virtualization, yet over the last, gosh, I almost want to say four or 5 years or so, we've been building a fairly solid breadth of product that is effectively driving this transition into the cloud era, as we like to talk about it. And we've changed our overall corporate positioning from being the leaders in desktop virtualization to really focusing on enabling mobility and delivering and powering cloud services. We actually believe that the two of these go hand in hand, because as you think about the ability to deliver mobility inside of the enterprise, we're not just talking about handsets, we're talking about laptops, we're talking about tablets, we're talking about mobile apps and services, et cetera. In order to do that, your infrastructure has to be built very cloud-like. And what we're finding is that that cloud-like infrastructure is being delivered on two parts, one inside of the enterprise and one inside of the public cloud. And so for the last 5 years, we've been building technologies around networking, cloud infrastructure platforms, as well as the app and service delivery mechanisms that sit on top of that. And it's become core to our overall business. And today, we're happy to say that we power some of the world's largest public clouds, as well as power many of the private clouds that are recognized and in existence today. What we're getting to right now, from an infrastructure perspective, is we're talking about effectively delivering cloud services on any cloud. Right? So this is the process and thought that we have inside the company with regards to how we go about delivering that stuff and enabling our customers to go leverage multi-cloud strategies for a number of different reasons. So this kind of comes back to that point that I made early on. We truly believe that we're making a radical shift from the PC era to the cloud era, right? And in this technology shift that we're seeing, we're challenging a lot of the norms with regards to classic infrastructure, classic networking solutions, software solutions, et cetera. And many of the leaders that are actually driving this change happen to be driven from startups, open source technologies, and companies that are building solutions that are purpose-built for the cloud. The success of RightScale is a great example of a company that challenged all of the norms with regards to classic enterprise technologies and delivered something that became an extremely powerful solution for users that were accessing, using, and embracing the cloud. And a lot of that comes from the fact that it was around usability, access, self-service, and simplicity. And that's a big part of what we actually believe needs to happen inside of an organization as you start thinking about getting into the cloud or getting into and using a hybrid cloud. So when we spend a lot of time talking to enterprises, right? So this is a research note that we went out and sponsored that talked to over 1,500 organizations of all sizes in the world. And what's interesting is many people, they've started on the public cloud, and that's probably been this migration over the last 2 to 3 years where enterprises have slowly adopted various workloads and applications and delivered them on top of the public cloud. Yet now, the shift that we're starting to see over the next couple of years is they're either in the middle of deploying or planning a deployment of a hybrid cloud. It is one of the most important things from an enterprise perspective. And there's a lot of things people need to think about as they get down that path, right? So the benefits we actually see with regards to the private cloud, it's really simple. It's no longer a CapEx, OpEx argument. It's no longer about the economics. Here it's about control, right? It's about being on-premise in my data center. I control it and I manage the applications and services that get delivered on top of this platform. This is important in the sense that this was one of the largest inhibitors towards cloud adoption inside of the enterprise, because in many companies, getting access or delivering apps and data out into the public cloud broke a lot of internal rules, whether it was because of the fact that there was certain IP that couldn't be released, or there was regulatory rules where they couldn't run in. So a couple of examples of that, just to put it in perspective. Nokia, they did actually start on the public cloud, but quickly it was shut down because it was a research and development arm inside of the organization. And what was happening was much of their valuable IP and assets that they believed were critical to the future of the company over the next few years was now being delivered outside on top of Amazon's cloud. And there was a big push to say we can't do that. Yet what had happened was the fact that the users had already gotten used to, accustomed to this new cloud way of doing business. Again, swipe a credit card, gain access to a server, instantly start running my apps and services. This concept of effectively instant infrastructure on demand at lower cost was far better than the 6-week wait that they had from requesting to delivery of service inside of Nokia. So they recognized that the fastest way for them to embrace and leverage cloud technologies inside of the organization was to actually build their own cloud. So many of these things, it was around taking the control of having your own infrastructure inside of the walls of the company, but with the flexibility and manageability and simplicity of what cloud had to deliver. So that's one example of why some companies are actually looking to build private clouds. Now the public cloud, we all know why everybody goes here. Again, it is that instant access, on-demand computing, CapEx versus OpEx. It's what's basically driven the growth of Amazon and DataPipe and Green Cloud and all of the other public cloud providers that are out there. It is where many people are going for services, and it is very much at that bottoms-up approach. Users are now accessing infinite amounts of resources on demand when they actually need to use them. What's happened, though, is you start taking a look at that, right? We gave Nokia as an example. Well, they recognize that just because one group has critical sensitive data doesn't mean that everybody has to run on a private cloud. It doesn't necessarily always make that economical sense to have everybody do that. So they want to basically be able to go deliver services or run applications out on the public cloud, right? Now comes the IT headache, right? Which basically says I'm running 2 different types of clouds. Right? I don't necessarily have visibility into which applications and services are being run where. The administration and the management of all of these services become absolutely critical. And so thinking about a hybrid cloud strategy that not only gives you the best benefits from the 2, but actually gives you that single pane control, so you have the same experience, the same policy management, the same applications, and your users ultimately shouldn't necessarily know where the applications are running. Right? This is what drives a lot of the elements of what we're seeing happen within the marketplace when we're talking about hybrid clouds. And we see some of this stuff happen, you know, for a number of reasons, right? We had a large social gaming company that has been in the news quite a bit lately. An example there, they've leveraged Amazon because of the CapEx, OpEx, and all of the other wonderful stuff that enabled them to run their social games. At the end of the day, they recognize that once they hit that static that static need where they could actually have predictable workloads, it was 1/3 the price to actually move it in-house and run their own cloud. Again, it comes back to how did they do that? They had to build an infrastructure and architecture that matched Amazon, right, that leveraged the same tools that they were running within Amazon to manage their social applications and effectively run it in an operational model that still had that accessibility, elasticity, scale, etc. So let's talk about, you know, what ends up happening as you think about it, because it's not just about a hybrid cloud, I've got two environments. There's ways you actually want to start thinking about connecting these implementations together, because at the end of the day, each cloud isn't necessarily an island, right? And one of the things we'll walk through and we talk about is the fact that when people are interested in things like disaster recovery or bursting, those are two of probably the most used hybrid cloud examples that are out in the marketplace today. The thing that limits the performance, the thing that limits their ability to actually leverage these two environments is the connection in between the clouds, right? So even when you have that single pane of glass that enables you to manage your users and your applications, you need to find ways to basically optimize and deliver the appropriate traffic and workloads in between the two so that you can actually start to scale on demand and you can actually start to effectively create that infinite scale, infinite resource pool inside of your organization. So we're going to go through and we're going to talk about all of these things, right? If I can get there we go. So one of the reasons that people are using hybrid clouds, right, and I'm pretty sure this is a consistent slide you've seen from all of the presenters today, but it really comes down to a few key points, right? So the first one, it's about capacity extension. The reality is, even when you have built a private cloud, right, the reality is, you know, you're going to hit limits with regards to how fast you can scale, especially as you start enabling self-service within your organization. Right? And the reality is, when you hit that point, you need to be able to bring new capacity and new compute back into the organization. Right? So we see a lot of great examples of companies that are doing exactly this. Generally, it happens in the dev test world, right? Where people are running either regression tests or doing pre-production tests or setting things up to essentially go in a cyclical manner. When they hit max capacity on their internal cloud, they want to burst out and actually start consuming capacity that's out on the public cloud. Geographical coverage is another big thing for a lot of our customers, right? And one of the great reasons to actually have a hybrid model. In the case of the social gaming company, great example there is they can't build data centers fast enough in order to go support them, as well as the fact that if you think about social media and their reliance on Amazon, Amazon at the time was in 5 geographies, right? 5 locations, none of which happened to be, now this has changed, none of which happened to be in Brazil, which happens to be one of the largest social gaming environments in the world. Right? So that accessibility of being able to build your own cloud, right? And now connect that cloud, whether it be to an Amazon or some of the other providers that are out there, and create a multi-cloud strategy enables that geographic dispersion, which is important for a lot of companies. This is still this is still a new type of use case for hybrid cloud. It's not where we see a lot of implementations, but it is a quickly growing thing, right? Price to performance ratio. There are certain apps and services that, quite honestly, you don't want to run either out in the cloud or you don't want to run in your own private cloud because the cost doesn't necessarily make sense. I gave the one reverse bursting example where the gaming company basically ran their stuff at capacity inside of Amazon, recognized that there was a significant cost savings if they brought it back in-house and operated it on their own, right? That's probably, again, a newer use case for a lot of people because I think visually Amazon tends to be more economical, or the public cloud becomes more economical than running it on your own. But when you do hit certain elements of scale, it does sometimes make sense to bring it back in. In the same sense, we talked about the Nokia example. Just because you have a private cloud doesn't necessarily mean you want to run everything on your private cloud. You want to basically right-size your workloads, your applications to policy, and basically say, these we're going to run here, these we're going to run in the public cloud, right? And then the last two, disaster recovery is quickly becoming one of the biggest reasons for companies looking for multi-cloud strategies, whether it's public to public or public to private. One of our customers, and it's a great example when you think about business continuity and you think about Citrix and just our global reach and who we get to go work with, we see all different types of things happening in the marketplace. One of our customers was heavily virtualized. They had done everything with regards to bought the whole virtual desktop and app transformation. They had optimized all of their data centers. They enabled hot desking and teleworking in many ways over in Japan. And then the disaster hit on 3/11 in Japan. And they had done everything to basically make their users mobile. Yet what they forgot to do was actually build in a plan for what happens when something hits the fan and you no longer can access your network, your data center, or your services. So they had effectively built a highly optimized cloud for themselves, which disappeared on that day. And we still are seeing all of the impact from 3/11 in Japan. It took them a long time to get their business back up and running. They had users that could use stuff, but they couldn't access any of the systems. As such, their plan for what they've done is they've recognized that the cloud actually makes the perfect opportunity for disaster recovery. And they've actually contracted with another CloudStack customer in Korea and effectively set it up in such a way that this stuff is sitting real time, ready in the event that you have some type of disaster, whether it's hopefully not another natural disaster, but a business disaster, network connectivity issues, etc. And because of the fact that the cloud is sitting in wait, ready for this, and can scale up quickly, they're not sitting there with a bunch of physical servers backing it up daily, waiting for something to happen. It actually can happen on demand. So they've built this whole model around business continuity by leveraging disaster recovery in the cloud. Doing that using the tools that we're talking about today inside of the conference. And then finally, IT self-service. Right, the reality is when I speak to a lot of guys that are building clouds, most of them have the same thing to say: I don't have time, or I don't really feel that my intelligence is being used if I'm spending my day spinning up VMs for users in the organization. Whether it's because of the fact that they're building on physical machines, or because they're running VMs within a virtual environment, they have more detail and more complexity of just turning on a system, assigning an IP address, delivering the workload, and delivering that out to your users. It's one of the highest costs in an IT organization. And when you think about what this new transformation into the cloud era is going, we have new levels of metrics. It's no longer one sysadmin per 100 servers, it's one sysadmin per thousands of servers. Well, in order to do that, you got to get rid of the meat cloud, and you got to start automating everything, right? And as you automate, you need the tools and components that enable you to effectively manage the policy, deliver the applications at the touch of a button, and deliver self-service to your end users. Going back to all of the examples we have in the hybrid use cases, as you do that, you want to be able to right-size that IT self-service and deliver the applications either on a public or private cloud, completely transparent and abstracted from your users. They shouldn't know, right? So that's where these tools come into play and are absolutely critical. So, how do you get there from here, right? Generally, when we sit down with customers, that's the daunting thing. The number one thing that we hear from our customers is, I've got a bunch of guys in Amazon, and I have a bunch of things that need to happen internally. How do I go about building my own private cloud? Because it seems unbelievably complex, and when I sit down with my Cisco's, no offense, Bob, when I sit down with my Cisco's or my EMC's or CA's, etc., we're usually talking about projects that are in the millions of dollars that require new hardware, new services. It's completely daunting, and the question comes back to, how do I go about making this transition happen? One of the things that I want to talk to you guys about is the fact that it doesn't require a multi-year, multifaceted, brand new hardware architecture type of a plan, and it doesn't cost millions and millions of dollars. You can actually get started pretty quickly using a lot of the tools and technologies that you're learning from here at the conference. And we've done a number of things that I'll tell you about with regards to making this extremely accessible for RightScale customers and to leverage CloudStack in a multi-cloud environment. So when we start going down this path, there's literally 3 steps that we talk about with our customers, right? So the other ones are grayed out. I'll go through them one by one. The first one is build, right? You want to be able to build your own cloud, right? So in the best way to understand how you go about building your own cloud, so again, going back to this, the best way is to understand how Amazon built their cloud, right? And the reality is they use Dell boxes like everybody else, 1- and 2-way pizza boxes, you know, extremely massively horizontally scaled and optimized for web services, right? And they built in some really interesting things around networking and storage, right? Flat networks with some interesting software-based rules and components that enables them to deliver the services that they do to their users, right? Define multi-tenancy and isolation, et cetera. And in the same sense, they've radically changed the market for storage, right? The S3 service that they've delivered actually became more important for them from a services perspective when they first launched that platform than the compute ever made itself out to be when it first started. They leveraged open source virtualization technologies, right, to effectively build that cloud platform and recognize that, you know, as customers come in, they're not buying, I want a physical box. It is, I want to buy an instance, right, based on a virtualized platform. They're delivering small, medium, large, extra large, right? On top of that, they basically built an orchestration engine. This is the tool that pulls everything together and creates that automated management of systems that enables them to achieve the economics of delivering it 3 cents an hour or 5 cents an hour. And then they built an API that effectively enabled them to build an entire ecosystem around that, right? The reason why RightScale exists today is because Amazon opened up their system with the APIs. And RightScale built that interface that enabled users to quickly and easily get onto Amazon, scale within Amazon, and run their applications and services within Amazon. And then on top of that, they made an online commerce platform that made it really simple for anybody to come in and use it, whether it's the new marketplace to just the payment transaction processing to, you know, that simple self-service of I need an account, I need to get in, and I need to run. When I look at a lot of public cloud services today, this was in many ways the entire revolution for how they basically changed the market and have, you know, dwarfed a lot of the competitors inside of this market. Right? Because they made it simple, it was automated, they thought through all of the policies, and for you and I, we can swipe a credit card, get access to a system within minutes versus talking to inside sales guys, then talking to a corporate sales guy, then working through the process of getting online. All right? And then, you know, they started to, you know, what had originally started 6 years ago as nothing more than compute and storage, they started to deliver services and solutions on top of that that were very vertically focused or very specifically focused to what customers were trying to go do. So we took a look at this and we said, well, you know, if we're going to build a private cloud platform and the number of our users are in many ways using public cloud platforms that mirror or match Amazon, we're going to build one, right? And that's what Citrix Cloud Platform is. This is based on the technology that came from cloud.com. And it is today effectively one of the largest and most successful cloud orchestration platforms in the marketplace today. And what I mean by that is, you know, we're running clouds. We probably have from a commercially paid cloud perspective, we have over 100 clouds running on top of CloudStack. Right? This ranges from service providers like many of those I mentioned before, the data pipes, the green clouds, et cetera, leveraging our platform to deliver public cloud services, right? But also private clouds, companies like Edmunds, or Bechtel, or Nokia, or some of those guys that we mentioned before. They're all running on top of our platform to deliver their services. Interestingly enough, we're an Apache-based project, and we've been open source since we launched the company. We believe quite heavily that open source is what's driving the cloud. And when we look at that implementation, we have thousands of customers actually running on top of our open source capabilities. So Green Cloud is one of the great examples of contributors and consumers of our cloud platform that doesn't necessarily have to pay us a dime in order to go build that solution. Right? In the same sense from a private cloud, Spotify, right? We just learned recently Spotify or New York Life, they're running clouds based on top of CloudStack that they've basically built using all of our open source technologies. Right? We originally focused on service providers, but today we have a pretty broad portfolio that technology set that enables enterprises and end users to actually build their own cloud. In fact, one of the RightScale guys here actually has their own cloud running in their garage on old gear. It's actually really cool. So our momentum to date has been pretty successful, and a lot of that comes from the fact that we went back to that model I showed you before with regards to Amazon and said, you know what, if Amazon can do it, how do we go about building the same thing? And, you know, we started with something that was pretty core to us, which was Zen Server, but we recognized that most of our customers are running multiple different types of virtualization platforms. So we run across everywhere from VMware to KVM to Zen to Oracle. And in fact, you can even run our platform on top of bare metal. So you actually don't need a virtualization platform to deliver our cloud. We built our own orchestration engine. Right? So again, all that automation of infrastructure that's sitting within the data centers to be pooled and delivered as a service out to your users, that became core. We were purpose-built from the start to effectively, this was our business, right? How do we create that data center OS, if you will, or cloud OS? We took a look at the Amazon EC2 API. We recognized that APIs are driving the market, and we built our own API set, which, by the way, builds compatibility and fidelity in for Amazon. So that means that if you're running your application or service inside of Amazon, you can quickly and easily move that over 95% of the time to a CloudStack platform without any change in how you actually architected or built your application. A lot of this comes from the fact that we recognize that Amazon, with their scale and breadth, has built a massive ecosystem of partners and components. So in many ways, our strategy around our API is to co-opt that ecosystem so the apps and services are there, right? And then differentiate by actually creating an extremely broad API set that enables people to go deeper into our platform. When we first started working with RightScale, the reason they were able to quickly get their platform running on top of CloudStack was because of that fidelity. But over time, what they recognized was they could go deeper into the platform in order to basically operationalize and maximize some of the facets that they have in the platform. Now, there are many orchestration engines out there. One of the things that we said, you know, if we're going to build an Amazon-style cloud, we've got to do more than just the orchestration. We've got to do more than just the API. We actually have to create an interface and a portal. We started that inside of our core platform, creating a very easy to use portal for users to come in and access. So even the marketing guy, myself, can go in and provision my own resources without ever understanding what goes on underneath. We took that to the next level with our cloud portal platform. This basically helps enterprises and service providers create an e-commerce platform that enables you to do things like set up projects and users, deliver to a marketplace, or all of the things that you think about with regards to operating your cloud as a business or as a service, not just the technology underneath. And then, whoop, I didn't go through that. Ultimately, we're doing the same thing with our ecosystem partners of enabling a lot of apps and services to be delivered on top. So if you think about that in the RightScale perspective, now you start seeing that we're delivering the exact same environment that many of you are using inside of an Amazon or a data pipe or any other public cloud service, right? But we're enabling you to actually do the exact same thing with the same architecture on-premise within your own environment. Now, it seems extremely complex, right, because there's still a lot of boxes here. Because of our relationship with RightScale and the work that we've done together for many years, we've actually simplified that with the MyCloud solution. So CloudStack is an option under MyCloud that basically takes all the complexity of building that data center up. It's literally have a target machine, download the code, register it within your RightScale environment, and you're already running with all of those benefits that we talked about with regards to the hybrid cloud. So, second one, automate. Right? And this is probably one of the most critical pieces with regards to defining and running a cloud environment beyond dev and test. This is how you actually get to the point where you can deliver it to all of the users within your organization. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but ultimately this is actually where RightScale comes in and why we've had such success with regards to cloud development and deployment within the ecosystem, right? And one of the benefits that you get, we talked real quick about the RightScale MyCloud. This enables you to quickly create an availability zone within your organization, right? So you have those apps and services running on-prem, you get the control, you get the policy management, you get all of the services that you need in order to run a private cloud simply, right? And then as you hit that point where you need to expand out or migrate workloads out into the public cloud because of the fact that you're either going from pre-production into production or you've hit capacity or what have you, that's where the public clouds come in. And they don't necessarily all have to be CloudStack-based public clouds. Because of RightScale and the abstraction layers that they build in, you have the ability to go out and effectively identify from a whole suite of service providers, ranging from an Amazon or CloudStack customers or even OpenStack customers to basically go run your applications out there. You get that single management pane that drives all of your policy and your governance, right? And you effectively have that ability to get all of the benefits of what hybrid cloud brings. Deliver your cloud services with that simplicity and that single pane management, so you're not running two separate environments between your private cloud and your public cloud. This is absolutely critical. And the automation that this brings is better economics, better control, better implementation across the board. So this is why we see a lot of success in the marketplace with RightScale and the MyCloud solution. So some of those customers that we talked about earlier, as well as many others like Edmunds, right? This is a great example of a company that does pre-production and dev test internally. As they go to production, they push it out into the public cloud. Great example of how that basically works is similar environment, similar policies, similar workloads, write once, run anywhere, whether it's internally or externally. And it works really well with regards to hybrid cloud computing. So the third one that we always talk about is connecting, right? This is the part that I think a lot of people don't fully think about when they're running a hybrid cloud. So it's good that you have the resources out there that you can quickly identify the data pipe is where you want to go run your services. But what you want to be able to do when running in a hybrid environment is streamline and connect those clouds in such a way that it's not just at the app layer, it's also at the infrastructure layer. So another thing that we've been working on inside of Citrix is something called CloudBridge, right? CloudBridge is our networking capabilities built from the NetScaler technology that we deliver actually in a virtualized environment and partner up with the many service providers to effectively create a solid and secure pipe between your data center and the public cloud. Now, why is this important? Well, at certain scale, right, the great example, again, going back to the concept of disaster recovery, how does Amazon deal with this stuff? Well, when they need to put a lot of the bits and deliver them back to the customers, they package them up on a tape, stick it in the FedEx truck, and 2 days later, maybe it shows up, right? That's not cloud, right? That doesn't necessarily get to that automation. The reason they have to do that is because unless you're using the Direct Connect service, the bandwidth can't handle it. So the concept of bursting, the concept of disaster recovery, the concept of really having that seamless connection between clouds can't actually come into play until you figure out how to connect these services together, right? So what this effectively does is it delivers a virtual networking solution that runs within the cloud that creates that secure pipe to your public cloud. And with a click of a button, you can effectively deliver those apps straight out in the same way that you actually choose clouds within the MyCloud or the RightScale application, right? So just to give you a quick example of this, built in the same way, same browser-based user interface that you have within RightScale for delivering and enabling multi-clouds, we can actually now do with regards to networking, meaning that as you set this stuff up and as you start running your hybrid environments, you can now select your service provider and actually create that tunnel between your local service and your remote service. Yeah? Does that make sense? This is a new technology that we've been working on for the last year, and we're starting to see a lot of great implementations out in the marketplace, because what this does is truly enables you to get to that point where you have that infinite capacity and infinite scale from your private to public cloud, or in some cases from your public to public cloud. We actually see this as a great model for connecting an Amazon to a data pipe to a green cloud. Type of a model, so that you can actually start delivering that round the world geographically dispersed workloads with the performance and cost expectations that you have. So at the end of the day, as you think about what you're doing on top of Amazon, right, there's a huge opportunity for you to diversify, right, and actually take control over your cloud environment. Whether it be that you want to build a private cloud for economic reasons, for control, for security, or what have you, it's easy, right? And you can do it using the same tools that you have today. And in the same sense, running multi-clouds across public cloud providers also ensure business continuity, as well as set up ways that you can basically deliver disaster recovery to your users.